Now Mary and Joseph traveled to Bethlehem. It must have been a hard journey. We don't know for sure, but we can guess based on our understanding of historic pilgrimages and ever-present day excursions through Jerusalem, Israel, Palestine, and Bethlehem. It must have been an arduous and perilous journey. Now, the scriptures only tell us that Joseph went from Galilee to the city of David, and he took Mary with him. That's all it says. Until the time came for her to deliver the baby. The Gospel of Luke only gives us 2 sentences about their legal expedition, while the Gospel of Matthew has nothing to say about it. Now, when I traveled to Bethlehem 5 years ago, the hardest part of our pilgrimage to the Holy City was the very minor threat of an attack upon us Americans. If you remember, the president had just moved the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. And it's funny because in 1995, Congress adopted the Jerusalem Embassy Act, urging the federal government to relocate the U.S. Embassy. It took 24 years for them to move the embassy. And it just so happened they moved it the day before we were supposed to go to Bethlehem, which meant there was actually a warning that we weren't supposed to go. And my spiritual director told me to go anyway. They warned us maybe we shouldn't go, but we thought if Mary and Joseph could make the journey in the way that they did, who were we? If they rode on a donkey and we went by plane and tour bus, couldn't be that bad. And the very next verse in the Gospel of Luke's telling of the birth of Jesus had some really profound details. She gave birth to her firstborn son, wrapped him in swaddling clothes, and laid him in a manger because there was no room for them in the inn. Now, there have been many interpretations of this small Greek word, kataluma. The Old English interpretation was that it was a public inn or a hotel. Well, that's not the right interpretation of the text. And we have seen many plays, TV shows, movies, you name it, depicting this old lodge that didn't have enough room for them. Actually, it means guest room. There was no room at the guest room of their family. Everybody had, well, still have, a guest room. And if you go to Bethlehem, you'll see that extended families have an open and spare bedroom. So if people were making sacred pilgrimages or going for a census, normally they might have a place to stay. It's like if your relatives all showed up unannounced looking for a bedroom to sleep in, and all the guest rooms, all the sofas, and all the couches were taken. And all the relatives have showed up before them. Then guess what? They might have been offered a space in the garage. Has any family member offered you the garage?
No.
Would you take them up on it?
No.
And then we know that in Israel that we have still homes where they have the living upstairs. That's the living room areas, that's the bedrooms. And down below, downstairs, is where they have the animals. That's why we hear about there being a trough. So we don't necessarily believe, or at least most scholars and some of us, don't believe that they went to this random place. Even if you go to some of the caves, it's pretty amazing when you go to Bethlehem and they have all of these caves on the actual site of where the angels showed up to the shepherds. These amazing caves that are now places of worship. They're beautiful. Where they would take care of their sheep, they would just guide them into the cave and then they'd stay at the foot of it at the entranceway. But it's really more likely that they went to go stay with a family member and there was no room in the spare room or anywhere else, so they got to stay downstairs in the garage because there was no room for them.